Hello everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Bree. If you are new, I don't know if you can tell and hear it in the way that I'm talking, but I'm sick. We started the year off real strong, but we should be at the very tail end of it, hopefully. But with that, I am gonna go ahead and make a chicken and gnocchi soup today with the leftover chicken from a whole chicken that we cooked in our Instant Pot a couple of days ago. I am going to go ahead and get this meat taken off the bone and ready to go into our soup. I'm also going to get our carrots, our celery, and our onion prepped for the chicken and gnocchi soup as well. So while I'm getting the chicken deboned and the chicken shredded and chopped, I'm going to take you back to the other day when we went ahead and we cooked this whole chicken in our Instant Pot and made another soup that I think was called chicken detox soup to help us out when we first got sick, because we wanted a really hearty soup that was gonna really help kick this sickness in the rear end. So I will see you guys back here once I'm done shredding up this chicken. So today we're gonna go ahead and make up a really hearty, nutrient-dense chicken soup, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and use this whole chicken that I had in the freezer, and I'm gonna cook it in my Instant Pot because I was at work all day today. It is after 6:30. I don't have any other non-marinated chicken in the house, and I need this bad boy to be cooked within the hour. And then I can assemble the rest of the soup. I can pick the meat off and throw it into the soup. We will not be using the whole chicken for the soup, but any chicken I don't use will just be shredded, and we'll use it for another meal later on, either this weekend or next week. But my Instant Pot is going to go ahead and pressure cook this chicken for us in about an hour's time. And so I'm gonna walk you through me literally just placing the chicken in here, how I get it ready, what settings I'm gonna put it on in the Instant Pot, and then what vegetables we're gonna put in this soup, because we wanna make sure that we are consuming lots of vitamins, some good minerals, some warm food. It really promotes the healing process. I'm not a doctor, this is not medical advice, but there's a reason your mom gave you chicken noodle soup when you were sick as a kid. I just don't want noodles today, so we're just gonna negate the noodles, but it's gonna be a really hearty chicken soup that is great for sickness, healing, and recovery. So if this is something you're interested in, if you are also sick, starting the year off strong, you may be interested in this recipe. You don't need to use a whole chicken. You can use chicken breasts, chicken thighs. You don't necessarily need to use the Instant Pot. It's just what I'm using. But essentially what you want is cooked chicken, some good vegetables like carrots, onions, celery, broccoli, and some good garlic, because they are all super rich in vitamins like vitamin A, B, K, vitamin C, and some potassium and folate and fiber. I did look that up so I could make sure I told you what was what. But what I'm going to do, probably should have done this before I touched everything with chicken hands. So let me go wash my hands. We'll empty the Instant Pot out and we'll get the whole chicken in. All right, so we're gonna put this uncooked whole chicken into the Instant Pot. Okay, so I got my hands washed. Now I'm gonna go ahead and season the chicken. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make our own broth within this chicken, and that broth will go into the soup when we make it. I also have a jar of home canned broth that I made a couple months ago, and we'll use that as necessary to just add to the soup. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle some onion on top of the chicken. I'm gonna sprinkle some garlic. I am not measuring, but I will go ahead and give you rough estimates of what I threw in here. This is gonna be a little bit of thyme, nothing crazy. We'll do the salt last. We're gonna do some oregano. Oregano has lots of great healing properties. If you are super into like holistic and herbal medicine, oregano is super, super powerful. So I'm making sure that goes in here. Turmeric is also a really good one for inflammation. If you find that you're super inflamed. This is also considered a detox soup, but because of what's in it, it's got so many applications and purposes. So I figured it's a perfect soup for us to use tonight. I'm gonna throw in some black pepper. I'm also gonna put red pepper flakes into the broth. when I'm simmering the vegetables and everything. So we'll also make sure to have some good quality spice and some heat, because spicy food is also really good for your gut and when you are sick. And then we're gonna put salt. Okay, this seems like a lot on the bird, but you gotta think that it's a whole chicken. It's not just small, like chicken breast or chicken thighs. We're doing the whole bird, and that was, gosh, I don't know. That was a 5.5 pound bird. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add probably 2 cups of water, and we'll see what that yields. Yes, I am using a Nalgene as a measuring cup because I don't want to get one of my measuring cups out. I have a Nalgene nice and handy. All right, so that's 1 cup. Oh. Well, there's just under 3 cups here. So we'll eyeball it. We don't want to fill it all the way because the chicken will release its own juices. So we don't want to fill this too much, but the water is going to be a nice base for the broth. And when you're using an Instant Pot, you have to have some sort of liquid, or else it'll have the tendency to burn on the bottom and then it won't work properly. So you always want to make sure you have some liquid. And that's looking like about 1.5 cups that I added. We'll add just a little bit more. So probably 2 cups. 2 cups was about the right number. Yeah, that's what we're going with. All right, so we put about 2 cups into here. I'm gonna go ahead, you wanna make sure your gasket is in and your little pressure knob here is in. Okay, let me plug the Instant Pot in. Let me walk you through what settings I'm gonna put this bad boy on. Okay, so for the Instant Pot, we're gonna hit pressure cook. Mine, I get the option to choose what pressure, and I want a high pressure. And because it's still partially frozen, we're gonna have this bad boy go 55 minutes should be really good. I don't want it to keep warm. And then we're gonna hit start. And now this is gonna cook for about 55 minutes plus the 10 minutes it's gonna take for it to come to pressure. So while we're waiting on the Instant Pot to come to pressure, I'm gonna go ahead and get our vegetables prepped. So like I said earlier, we're gonna put broccoli in the soup because broccoli has really good vitamins, especially vitamin B. We got carrots that has K, vitamin C. We also have celery, which is also K, C, A, and potassium and iron. So, and then our onions, I think I'm only gonna put 1 onion in, but onions have great properties. And then we've got some homegrown garlic that's gonna go in here as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get these prepped and set aside. I'll probably put them back in the fridge. And then we wait, and I'll bring you back once I go ahead and get the vegetables put on to simmer so they're a little bit cooked and they release their nutrients into the broth as well. So I keep a compost bin underneath my sink because I have a garden and I like to throw my compost into the garden. So the first thing I'm gonna do is at least, there's a really bad spot on this celery. I don't think it's super terrible. Let me see. There we go. Okay. And I'm gonna rinse all this off. Let me just go ahead and give it a chop real quick. Yeah, we may need more celery. Okay. Throw this in there to be washed. Okay. Then the broccoli florets. Smaller chunk for the compost. Before we take all of this to go get rinsed, I want to get these carrots peeled, so I only have to rinse everything once. grab all of this. There we go. Go ahead and pick off these florets. And I want these to be bite-sized because it's a soup, so I'm going to make sure that the florets aren't too much. They don't take more than a single bite to be able to eat. And then we're just going to cut these stalks. These stalks I'm fine with, so I'm not super worried about putting those stalks into the soup. One thing about broccoli, you see all these little excess pieces. I think I'm pretty certain these are all like flower buds. You eat the broccoli before it truly flowers because it will flower. All of the broccoli I've ever grown has flowered. So the broccoli we consume has been harvested before it got the opportunity to flower. Enough broccoli. If there's any left over, I'll just eat that fresh. Chuck that in there. And the celery, I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a good slice. And I'm okay with the celery leaf being in there as well. And this carrot, it's rather thick, and I would prefer not to have like full rings of this. So I'm going to cut this carrot in half and not cut my finger off in the process. Let's see. There we go. That's better. And then I'm going to cut it in half one more time. Now we're going to slice. I don't know if you can hear that hissing in the background. That is the Instant Pot trying to pressurize. Let's see. Celery, carrots. Yeah, we'll do one more carrot. I'm also going to cut this carrot in half. Yeah, I'm going to save the rest of this broccoli. Oh, there's a little piece of celery here. There we go. There's a piece of celery there. Now we're going to go ahead and peel an onion. And I am definitely going to put the whole, let's see, I may put the whole onion. So if you want onions to be just sliced, you see how there's the root end and then there's the top end where it sprouts out of. If you're going to just want slices, you want to slice it from pole to pole. If you're going to dice it, you're going to dice it both pole to pole and along the equator, essentially, so it doesn't matter. But if you only want sliced onions, you want to do pole to pole. But for diced onions, oops, You're sticking to the knife. Ooh, that is a strong onion. Holy smokes. Let's see. That seems good. We'll save this other half of an onion for another meal. And now we want some garlic. And we really like garlic. And again, garlic has a lot of microbial properties. And so I'm probably going to put maybe 4 cloves of garlic in here. 5 cloves of garlic. And so I don't have to dice it all up. I really like my garlic press, and so that's what I'm going to use for this. And you just plop the garlic in, and then you push, and out the garlic goes. And yes, I saw the little piece just shoot right at you. And we're going to cut it off. And I actually like to just go ahead and grab these pieces and throw them in there anyways. There we go. And now this is ready. We'll just go ahead and throw a couple of seasonings in here, and now we wait for the chicken to finish cooking. Okay, so we have about 35 minutes left on the chicken. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is get I'm going to get the vegetables simmering so that way they are cooking, because the chicken is already going to be cooked. I'm gonna go ahead and put 1 pint of chicken broth in here. I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes so it's got a little bit of heat. Good for boosting that immunity. We are also going to salt and pepper this. Maybe. And adding salt is going to help these vegetables release their moisture as well. I'm actually just going to go ahead and put this on a low simmer. We will go ahead and add just a little bit of turmeric to this as well. And let's see. What is this? Your parsley. And we'll go ahead and add some freeze-dried parsley near the end when we're getting ready to throw everything together. It just needs to reconstitute, but I don't need it to sit in here this whole time. Give this a mix. I may add some more liquid. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this bad boy up. Throw in another pint. There we go. And another pint of water did the trick. It'll be perfect. We'll get this simmering. All of the flavors infused. I feel like we need just a little bit more red pepper flakes. There we go. That should do it. Okay. And we will let this bad boy simmer while we're waiting on the chicken. All right, so the Instant Pot is done. I've let it depressurize for about 10 minutes. It's not fully depressurized. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a towel over it now, and I am gonna go ahead and flip the switch so it can release the rest of the pressure. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut up some pieces off of this chicken and throw it into our soup, and we'll be ready to go. We're depressurized. I'm gonna take the lid off. Perfect. And just to make sure the chicken did fully cook, it looks pretty cooked. It's split. I don't know if you can see this. The chicken did, in fact, split, so that's a good sign. But because it was frozen, I just want to double check. Yeah, we're good. It's well over 165 degrees. Okay, then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the skin here because I'm gonna save this carcass and turn it into more chicken broth, or we're gonna drink this chicken broth throughout the rest of the week. But I'm just gonna go ahead and free the breasts from the rest of this so I can let the rest of the bird just cool down. Boots, will you stop? There we go. So there's one chicken breast. We're gonna go ahead and that's fine. And get this chicken just sliced, shred it up just a little bit. It's really, really tender. So, I mean, I don't really need to cut it too much, but maybe put it into some smaller chunks. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put this in our soup. Ooh, that lid is hot though. All right. I'm also gonna go ahead and throw in a handful of freeze-dried parsley. It's got a lot of good nutrients. I'm just gonna give that a stir real quick. We're gonna stir this in and we're gonna see if we need more broth. It's looking like we do. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop some broth out of the Instant Pot into here, and our soup will be ready to go for dinner. Okay, we'll start there. We'll see what that looks like. Let's see. Perfect. There is a bone. Okay. This awesome, hearty, very nutritious soup. It's going to help. Hopefully Reed and I feel a lot better, get some really good nutrients in us, and we'll be back good as new, hopefully next week. All right, so we got our chicken deboned and shredded. I don't that is a bone, so we'll put that in there. And then the rest of the carcass I put in a bag, and I'm gonna put it in our freezer. I have another chicken carcass that is uncooked, and what I'm gonna do is when the time comes, I'm gonna throw both of the carcasses either into the Instant Pot or into the slow cooker, and I'm going to cook them down even more and make some delicious homemade broth. But now that our chicken is done, our celery and our carrots are done, I needed 2 stalks of celery finely chopped. I needed a cup of shredded carrots. There's a little bit more there. And I needed a whole onion, or it says a cup of onion, I think. My hands are dirty. I need a cup of chopped onion. And this just isn't quite a cup, so I'll need to cut up a little bit more, but I needed to use up the onion that was in the fridge. So now we're gonna go ahead and get our Dutch oven. You can also use a regular stock pot if you have it. We're gonna heat olive oil, or I'm gonna use avocado oil, and then we're gonna get the onions and the carrots and the celery sauteing in the stock pot. That was a little much, but that's okay. All right, and while this is coming to heat, I'm gonna go ahead and get the other onion diced on up. I had to run to our food storage to go get some garlic because our recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic. So let's go ahead, let's get the compost bucket out real quick. Let's grab a couple cloves of garlic. These cloves were on a little bit of a smaller side except for 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and use 4. We also really love garlic in this house. And then the trick is just to smash the shell of the garlic, and it makes it much easier to peel. I don't know why I bothered putting that away. I need to peel the garlic into there. Okay, that skillet should be pretty warm too. So while I'm doing this, let me go ahead and get our onions into the skillet. We also need to get our carrots and our celery in there. And we're going to let all of that brown and saute for a couple of minutes. All right, our garlic is now peeled. We are going to save this half of an onion. We're just going to put the lid on and we're going to stick this in the fridge. We're going to go ahead, we're going to stir around our vegetables. The smell of carrots and celery and onions sauteing in a pan is just awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. I just love the smell and the combination. It's very comforting to me, in my opinion. It's very good homey smell, and honestly it makes me think of my childhood. I'm not 100% sure why, but those combination of flavors and smells are just awesome. Okay, so we're gonna add the garlic in here in a few minutes. Garlic does not take long to saute, and it's actually really prone to burning. So I didn't want to add it immediately. I absolutely love my garlic press. I love garlic, but I hated mincing it because it's so small, and to me it was a real pain to mince. But my garlic press, once I got one, I have not looked back, and now I absolutely love cooking with garlic again. So if you can afford it and it's in your budget, I recommend a garlic press. I would also recommend you get one that is metal. I had a plastic one and it was very flimsy, and if you get a really hard garlic clove, you run the risk of possibly breaking. This is OXO brand. I don't remember where I got it, but I like the fact that it's metal, and so it's incredibly durable. All right, this recipe calls for 32 ounces of broth. This is at least 16 ounces. This broth is actually from when I cooked the whole chicken. I needed to add a little bit of liquid into the Instant Pot, and this was the broth that was left over. That didn't go into the soup we made. So we're gonna go ahead and use this in here first. And this is at least 16 ounces. Let me see. Really put this on the wrong. I think I'm gonna have to microwave this to soften it up because it's really gelatinous, which is great. You want your broth to gel. That's a good sign that it's got all the collagen that it needs. Oh, maybe not. Let me just break this gel up a little bit and it'll come out of the, yeah. We're just gonna chuck it in the microwave for a few minutes just to soften it on up. But in the meantime, that's only 16 ounces. So we're gonna throw in another jar of home canned broth to this. So the recipe told me to go ahead and add in salt and pepper first. However, this broth, especially the one from the whole chicken, it's already been seasoned a little bit. So I wanted to go ahead and mix all of this up before I went ahead and salt and peppered it, because I don't want it to be over seasoned. So if you know that you're using broth that has in fact been salted, I would say maybe wait to salt until you give it a taste and then add salt. It's much easier to add. You really can't take away. And we've got this guy on the side in case we need it. Let's see, what else? Oops. The recipe says to go ahead and add the thyme, the red pepper flakes, the dried oregano, and the chicken, and then we're gonna bring it to a boil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of this stuff, give it a stir, and then I will salt and pepper after it's come to a boil and see what it needs. So there's all of our chicken. Okay, and it does call for fresh thyme, so let's see how much. It calls for a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. So we're going to eyeball this. I have crushed red pepper, and that's about as close as we're going to get. So we're going to add a little bit of that. It calls for 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, a teaspoon of dried oregano. So we're gonna eyeball, it's about a teaspoon. And I don't have the thyme already ground, so I'll just go ahead and add, look at this sprig. Probably add 2 sprigs. It says 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, so there we go. We'll do that and we'll see. That should be good. So I added a total of like 4 sprigs. We're gonna give this a good mix. Okay, we're gonna turn the heat up and we're gonna let this come to a rolling boil. So while we're waiting on this to boil, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my mess a little bit, so that way I clean as I go and we don't have as much of a mess to clean up after dinner tonight. This is at a good rolling boil. So now we're gonna turn it down to low. We're gonna let this simmer. It does smell really good. It says to let this simmer for about 10 minutes. So while we're waiting on this to simmer, I am gonna go ahead and get the coconut milk measured out. So this recipe actually calls for heavy cream. We don't have heavy cream in the house. I have not had the opportunity to go buy some. Also because we're sick and we've got some congestion and a little bit of like phlegm in the throat, I'm trying to stay away from any sort of milks that have dairy. So we're gonna use coconut milk in this application, and it calls for a cup of coconut milk. And so this, oh, it's much thicker than the stuff I have in my fridge. So it's just coconut and water. This is the brand that I chose. I think I got it at Walmart, so nothing, it should be available for most people. But I'm just gonna go ahead and measure out a cup. Oh, perfect. Yeah, this is nice and thick. And if I need to, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted a really thick coconut milk. It is decently thick, so I'm gonna go put this in the fridge. We've got a cup of thicker coconut milk right here. And then if I deem it's necessary, if I feel like the soup just needs to be a little bit thicker, I may add some flour. So I'll get a little bit of the broth and I'll mix in some flour and then I'll throw it back into the soup. That way the flour just doesn't turn into clumps within the soup. And the directions for this recipe also call for baby spinach. Again, we don't have spinach on hand. I would really like to use up some of the kale we have on hand, so I'm going to substitute kale for spinach. And then we've got potato gnocchi. It calls for 16 ounces. This is from Trader Joe's, and it says we can cook it in the sauce. And this recipe also says to cook in the sauce, so I'm really excited to give this a try. The ingredients in this aren't bad. It's potato, so water and potato flakes, wheat flour, rice flour, and then cultured dextrose and lactic acid. Honestly, that's not bad for store-bought. So I'm gonna give these a try for the first time. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, that looks like it. With the fact that we've been sick, I've been really craving some like hearty soups with a lot of good healing vegetables. So carrots and celery and onions and garlic are super healing. So is broth, especially the chicken broth. Since I made it at home, it's not filled with any like preservatives or MSG or anything like that. I controlled the ingredients that went into my chicken broth. So even though this is a creamy soup, I still count it as a good, hearty, nourishing soup, and it's probably, hopefully, it's going to be delicious. If you've made potato gnocchi soup, I'd love to hear about it, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are. But I figured I'd just take you guys along with me as I made this, because one, it's new to me, and so it may be new to you if you're watching. And I wanted to show different uses for whole chickens. Oh my goodness, what is... Okay, hopefully I didn't melt that. But also, cooking with a whole chicken is a really nice way to do this because I didn't actually have to cook the chicken. It was already pre-cooked for me for this recipe. So this recipe came together really easily. And cooking a whole chicken is a great way to get a bunch of meals kind of meal prepped for the week or for the weekend. Because that whole chicken fed Reed and I both dinner the first night, lunch the second day, and then this potato and gnocchi soup is definitely going to get us through dinner, and very likely we're going to have leftovers for sure. So that's 4 meals. That's 8 meals because it fed both Reed and I. So he and I both ate. So one whole chicken gave us 8 meals, and I only had to cook 1 chicken. Everything else, I mean, I had to chop up the vegetables, but that's way quicker than having to cook chicken every single time. So I actually really like purchasing chickens. I've never cooked a whole chicken for this particular purpose before. Normally, when I cook, or when I buy a whole chicken, I actually just divvy up the parts so that way I have the pieces to cook with. I may start cooking a whole chicken on a regular basis now because I can use that meat for other things. We don't just have to eat plain chicken, I can throw it into a bunch of other stuff. So I'm really excited I gave this a shot. Yeah, this is gonna be great. Let's take a look. That's hot. Let me go get let me grab this towel. It's supposed to be simmering. I don't actually think it's simmering. That's fine. So now I want to go ahead. What does it say? Add the potato gnocchi, add the baby spinach, and add the heavy cream. Okay, so we've got the potato gnocchi here. All right, we still have a little bit of time. Wow, I can tell that I'm still sick. I went to work today and I opened my computer and I clicked on all the wrong things for about the first hour. So we still have about 5 more minutes left for this to simmer. I just turned it down a little lower. But let me go ahead and get the kale that we're going to use in place of the spinach. So this is kale that I grew in the garden this last year. And I love to garden. Garden has become one of the new things for me to be able to control the quality of the food that Reed and I eat. And I'm all about trying to be self-sufficient and just independent. And growing my own food is one of the ways that I have found that I really like to practice those values that I have. And so leafy greens, aside from lettuce, I do relatively well in. Or actually, no, spinach I don't do super great in. Last year was my first year where it did semi-okay. Kale. I crush kale every year. So it's also why I have a bunch of kale on hand, so I'm happy I get to use it. All right, so our 10 minutes are about up. This pot is nice and simmering. Here we go. So now I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna add the potato gnocchi. Maybe we can get it to come out. There we go. Okay, we are gonna add the spinach, and it called for 5 ounces of baby spinach. So, sure, we'll add a little bit more, like our leafy greens. And then if I need to add just a little bit more, sure. Leafy greens are very light, okay? And then I'm gonna go ahead and add, our coconut milk. We'll get this all mixed up, and then the gnocchi only has to cook for a couple of minutes. So we'll get this all mixed up. We'll bring up the heat just a little bit. It was on low, and I really only brought it up to like 2.5. Okay, so our soup has been going for a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a taste test to see if it needs more salt or not. Yeah, it definitely needs more salt. It's currently not as creamy as I'd like it to be either, which is fine. Oh. The amount of crushed red pepper that we put in here was perfect. It's got just a little bit of heat. And if I haven't told you already, so if you saw when I went ahead and I was cooking the chicken, I threw turmeric powder in there. So this soup is a little more yellow than it would traditionally be, just because of that turmeric powder, because turmeric dyes everything. Okay. What I may do I got this guy rinsed on out, I am going to grab some of the hot broth. And I'm gonna add a little bit of flour to thicken this soup up. We're gonna let it simmer for a little bit. The gnocchis are cooked. I'm not worried about the gnocchis at all. I'm gonna go ahead and add just under a quarter of a cup of flour. And I'm gonna try and not drop the whisk. All right, now that we have a clean whisk, I'm gonna go ahead and mix the flour up. I would normally sometimes like to use cornstarch, but I am out of cornstarch. I didn't realize I was out of cornstarch. So I'm just gonna use some flour. I may use a little bit more just because of how much soup there is. So we'll make it an even quarter cup. We'll just get the flour mixed on in. And the reason I did this was so that way I could whisk up the flour and it's not in big clumps when I go ahead and pour it back in to the soup. I don't want clumps of flour in my soup, so by doing this, it eliminated the clumps and I didn't have to worry about it. There we go. We'll give that a few minutes and that'll thicken the soup on up. I'm primarily checking to see if I put enough salt in here. It's definitely thickened though. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna add just a dash more of salt. And our soup is ready, guys. Wow. Oof. I am most definitely gonna have to make this again. Just the broth. Just the creamy soup base was delicious. So I cannot wait to enjoy this. It could probably be a little bit thicker and creamier, but I'm not super worried. I used coconut milk instead of regular milk, and so I don't think it's a huge deal. So let me go ahead and put this away. I'll tell Reed dinner is ready, and I'll show you what our bowls look like, and then we'll do a taste test together too.
What are you doing? Oh, you're just gonna flop down?
So let's see. There's a piece of chicken. There's a piece of gnocchi because I've never had the Trader Joe's gnocchi. Oh yeah, that's good. Adding the flour definitely thickened up the broth. And obviously you don't have to use coconut milk. I substituted coconut milk for instead of the heavy cream. So that'll change the creaminess of this as well. But for full fat coconut milk, I think it did a decent job. So I'm pretty excited about this. Now we're gonna sit down. We're gonna enjoy the rest of our night. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you give this a try. Let me know if you did. And let me know if you cook whole chickens to help prep meals for throughout the week as well. But I will see you guys the next time we are in the kitchen cooking up something delicious. Bye.